No, not the Masters. Still a couple of months away there from a green jacket, but we are just a couple of weeks away from crowning district champions in the WPIAL District 7. And we go beyond the scoreboard today on the Lawrence County SportsNet broadcast, talking some bracketology for the big day on Monday, Super Bowl Monday. If you're recovering after the Super Bowl last night, congratulations to whichever team won. This is being recorded before Super Bowl Sunday festivities, but coming out on actual bracket day on Monday. Congratulations to either the Chiefs or the Eagles, and to all commercials fans as well. I know I'm excited to be watching for the IndyCar commercials, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get into it right away, taking a look at some bracketology and what we think the committee may or may not do when the brackets come out on Monday afternoon. 2 o'clock is when those brackets are set to be released by the committee. We'll announce them as we find out about them as well on social media. Let's start. I'm going to dive just very briefly into the classifications that we do not have Lawrence County teams participating, just to give a little 2 cents there, and then we'll go a little bit deeper into the ones where we do have teams from Lawrence County. So starting with the girls in Class 4, 5, and 6A. 6A is an interesting one. I have Norwin and Upper St. Clair as the top two. Seneca Valley, yeah, they ran away with their section, but they also have a pretty bad loss on their schedule to Upper St. Clair. So I think, not that it really matters at 2 versus 3, but that's why I have them going in that order. Norwin, Upper St. Clair, Seneca Valley, and Cannon-McMillan as the top 4 teams there. 5A is also an interesting one because you have a 3-time defending champion. You also have a different team who is undefeated on the year, one of the few of them, and you have a third team in Peters Township that has one of the top scorers in the entire state, actually committed, I believe, to the University of Miami there. So how do you rank those 3? That honestly, that is the way I put it. I have no problem if you say Penn Trafford won, South Fayette too. I don't have any issue with that. I went the other way. South Fayette had an incredible year this year still and are the defending champions. I know you're not supposed to look at past resumes, but it's tough not to with what they've done in 5A. So I have South Fayette 1, Penn Trafford 2, Peters Township 3, and Shaler as the 4 seed. In Class 4A, also a bit interesting because you have Oakland Catholic and North Catholic as co-section champs because they split their regular season. That's always the debate. What do you do when you have co-section champions? In this regard, because I still think Blackhawk is even and probably better than those two, I think you have to put Blackhawk 1 and then Oakland and North Catholic with the potential to meet for the 3rd time on the other side of the bracket. That's how I have to have it. I have Oakland Catholic 2, North Catholic 3. Again, not a huge difference if you flip-flop them 2 versus 3, and Elizabeth Forward as the 4. Let's get a little bit more into the WPIAL Class 3A bracketology, and not as much fun in Class 3 as I expected it to be. But here's where I had the difference from like what I just said for Class 4A. When you had co-section champions, Oakland and North Catholic, having them potentially meet again when there's, in the semifinals that is, when there's another team that is just above them on the year in Blackhawk, it's tough to do because I'm of the mindset if the 2 best teams end up being in the same section, you want to see them meet in the finals. I like to try to make that potential happen. I just don't see a way to do that in 4A, again, with how good Blackhawk is. Here's an example in Class 3A girls where I do think you can make a strong case that you have the 2 top teams from the same section there in Section 2. Shadyside Academy, the 1, Greensburg Central Catholic as the 2. Yes, Shadyside swept Greensburg Central Catholic. I don't see much of a difference, though, in between them in those 2 games. The fact of the matter being that, you play a 10-point game against Shadyside Academy. Well, who were the other two losses against? Teams we just talked about big time, South Fayette and Peters Township. Those are the other two losses for Greensburg Central Catholic. So I think they're deserving of the 2. Again, if you want to make a case, they should be the 3, not a 2, and not get one of those byes. I can understand that mentality as well. Actually, I completely forgot. Greensburg Central Catholic as the 2 wouldn't get the bye anyway. You had the tie getting Brownsville in there as a 15 seed. So that idea of having the second bye, I guess, really doesn't matter at all whatsoever. But, I mean, Erica Gribble is going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think this is a team that's proven themselves pretty well over the last few years, in Class 2A especially, but still showing what they are going to be a force in Class 3A. So the 3 seed I have as Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, and the 4 seed I have as Keystone Oaks. Keystone Oaks and Seton LaSalle, again, here's another scenario. Those are co-section champions. I have them as the 4 and 5 right now. Keystone Oaks, that's also their only loss of the year. Keystone Oaks was an interesting team to kind of look at in terms of where they show up in the bracketology, just because, again, that's their only loss. They had some decent non-section wins, but nothing that really stood out huge in my mind. Probably their biggest non-section win was against Aliquippa. Yeah, good Aliquippa team, but that is down in classification. So I end up with Shadyside as the 1, McGuffey against Riverside as an 8-9 first-round matchup coming up. Again, these are all my predictions, no guarantees whatsoever on any of this. Keystone Oaks is the 4, taking on Washington, and Seton LaSalle taking on Elwood City in the first round of the playoffs. That's a 5-12 game in my bracketology between Seton and Elwood. Greensburg Central Catholic, again, have them going against Brownsville. The 7-10 matchup, Avonworth and Beaver Falls. That'll be a fun one. Avonworth, always a gritty team. Beaver Falls, again, one of the top scorers in Taylor Pullen in the entire WPIAL, and certainly one of the tops in the classification. 3 seed Our Lady of the Sacred Heart, again, just a consistently good team, perfect in Section 1, 19-2 overall. I have them taking on Ligonier Valley as the 14 seed. And then 6 seed Quaker Valley. Again, don't sleep on the Quakers when you got Mimi Thero. It's going to be a matchup nightmare for most teams. I have them as the 6, taking on Deer Lakes in the opening round as an 11. But really, as I look at this, basically every team 7 through 11 or 12, probably 7 through 12, all very comparable. Going to be fun to see how the committee tries to dissect all of that. If we jump down to Class 2A, and again, this is a scenario that I think you have, in my mind, a pretty clear indication that the top 2 teams both were coming from the same section. Neshannock and Aliquippa, they split. How do you pick who's the 1 and who's the 2? Well, Aliquippa won in overtime. Neshannock won in a mercy rule. Because of that, you have to say Neshannock is the 1. Aliquippa, in my mind, is the 2. I see a lot putting him as the 3 behind Winchester Thurston as the 2. Again, that 2 versus 3 doesn't make a huge difference in my mind. So because of that, I do have the Quips as 2 and Dub Airs as 3. After that, the next probably 4 through 10 are a very interesting way to try to order all these teams in my mind, and I'll get into that in a second. But the Neshannock will play the only pigtail game. Bentworth Carmichaels, they split for an extra position, so they will play each other in my mind to get that 16 seed. Winner of that one would take on Rochester or Beth Center as my predicted 8-9 matchup. Rochester is a team 9-11 record in section play, but they've played tough games, and I hope the committee looks at that because they lost games early in the year to higher classification opponents. But you take Union, again, down in classification, but they're the 2-time defending WPIAL champions, took them down to the wire in a 5-point loss. They battled really well against both Neshannock and Aliquippa in their games later in the season. Just to me, this is a team that the record doesn't show how competitive and strong of a team Rochester is. So I'm probably going to be higher than the committee. I'm hoping that that's a team that the committee is taking a look at, though. The 4-seed Riverview, I said, I have them playing Brentwood in the first round, and 5-seed Southside, again, another team I think kind of flying under the radar, playing against Apollo Ridge in the 5-12 matchup. Aliquippa in the first round as the 2, I have them taking on the Ellis School. 7-10 matchup I have between Chartiers Houston. Yeah, Chartiers Houston all the way down as a 7 seed. That was a really tough one to talk about. I have them taking on 10 seed Laurel in the opening round of the playoffs. Part of the reason why I have them is they did play some good opponents, but they also had a couple of games that didn't go their way in and out of classification. So, for example, they played against Winchester Thurston. They lost. They played against a decent Keystone Oaks team up in classification and lost. They played earlier in the year, and yes, it was early in the year, but they played against Fort Cherry, and Fort Cherry lost. That's why I have Fort Cherry as the 6 ahead of Chartiers Houston as the 7. A couple of the other ones I meant to mention, Rochester defeated Southside. But the overall resume is why Southside has to still be ahead of Rochester. But that's a big win for the Rams. I think they need to be bumped up as a result. So that's why Chartiers Houston, even as a section champion, I have them dropped down as a 7 seed. Fort Cherry is also a section champion, so I can't really say much about that as they are the 6. But I have Chartiers the 7 taking on Laurel in the first round. The 3-seeded Bears of Winchester Thurston against Burgettstown, and Fort Cherry the 6 taking on 11-seeded California. Yeah, interesting. Now you have Neshannock dropping from 3A to 2A, Greensburg Central Catholic from 2A to 3A. Doesn't really matter much. Both teams near the top of their classifications. Down to Class 1A, and in Class 1A, there's, again, a no-doubter that you have the top seed as the undefeated Union Scotties, 22-0, 14-0, and if you didn't catch it, how about the 50-burger? 50 that Kylie Frustorfer put on against the team we just talked about, Winchester Thurston, who's probably going to be the 2 or 3 seed in Class 2A to get that win in non-section play on Friday night. The fun issue with this one is that in Section 2, you have Geibel Catholic, who is section champions. They split with Clairton, who is in second place. Sarah Catholic, also a strong team out of there at 10-4. By the way, those 3 teams have 3 of the top, I believe it's the top 6 scorers, top 7 scorers in the WPIAL this year. When you have Geibel Catholic, Emma Larkin, 27 points per game. Ayanna Wade, though, from Clairton, how about this? Top at over 40. I think she has at 42 points per game right now. And Sarah Catholic with Bella Dombrowski also over 20 points per game. That's about where Frustorfer will be after she put up 50 in the game there on Friday afternoon. So how do you seed all them? Well, Geibel's got to be the 2. They're section champions. No question about that one there. After that, it is a little bit fun because Clairton's got to be the 3. You can really make the argument, and actually I believe Don Rebel and Chris Harlan's Trib Live Bracketology both, I think, ended up doing this. Just kind of worked out that the way that they had the teams seeded, you almost ended up with a Section 1 half of the bracket and a Section 2 half of the bracket. Mine doesn't quite come out to be like that. I have Sarah and St. Joseph as the 4-5 playing against each other, and Aquinas as the 6. St. Joseph and Aquinas split in their regular season games, and the only reason why I end up having St. Joseph over Aquinas Academy is because they won the more recent matchup. There's not a lot to separate those two. It is a difficult scenario again. How do you look at it? Do you have the best teams? You want it to be, again, ranked appropriately. You don't have power rankings. We'll talk about that after our break here. You don't have power rankings to go off of. So how do you create the proper matchups and give the true respect to the teams that have played the best over the course of the year? And it's really tough to differentiate a St. Joseph and Aquinas Academy. Maybe them as a 4-5 would make more sense. As a result, and making it essentially a sectional bracket. I just personally don't think that's what's going to end up happening. I do think Sarah Catholic is the fourth best team in this classification, so that's why I have them as the number 4. So Union with a bye, taking on Springdale or Bishop Canevin as that 8-9 game. That is my prediction. Sarah Catholic, St. Joseph, as I mentioned, the 4-5 game. Geibel Catholic, the 2 with a bye, taking on either West Green or Eden Christian. And Clareton also with a bye. I have them taking on a Academies battle, Aquinas against Swickley. And the only reason why that's happening, you can't very accurately be able to put these brackets together and avoid first-round matchups when you have extra play-in games happening. So you do end up getting a section rematch there in that 6-11 game between Aquinas and Swickley. I guess technically, yeah, you could fix that if you move Aquinas to the 4 and 5 game and move Sarah Catholic down to 6. But again, in terms of the pure rankings, I think this is the way that, in my mind, it should be. Well, there's your Class 1 through 6A bracketology for the girls' side of things. We'll step aside here on the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast, and when we return, we'll take a look at the boys' bracketology here when we return. Beyond the Scoreboard podcast on Lawrence County SportsNet. It's powered by LCAP.
Don't get left out to dry. Call the Penn Ohio Bottled Water Company for the fastest and most efficient bottled water delivery service in the area. Penn Ohio offers bottled water ranging from 16.9-ounce bottles to 5-gallon jugs, perfect for your next event or office water cooler system. Also, don't forget to ask about their custom labeling options. Visit PennOhioBottledWater.com for more information and to get a quote on their delivery services. Whether it's at home, in the office, or on the sidelines, Penn Ohio has you covered.
Just like going to the doctor, our homes need a checkup too. If your home is not properly weatherized, you could be at risk for symptoms that cause unhealthy ailments and higher utility bills. The Weatherization Assistance Program is the key to reducing utility costs and increasing comfort in your home. Services include an in-home energy audit to inspect your furnace and hot water tank, check for air sealing around windows and doors, and ensure adequate insulation and ventilation. Learn more at lcap.org or call the Department of Healthy Homes to get your
Thanks
checkup
again to Penn Ohio
today.
Bottled Water, delivering these podcasts each and every week, as we're going to try to go get you updated each week here through the playoffs. We won't know how that's going to work out, though, until we see what these schedules look like in terms of trying to find a day at a time to get some updates out there. So stay tuned with us. We'll get things to you to the best of our ability when we can for updates. Real quick, a District 10 update, as they still have another week to go before their playoffs begin. Keep tabs for that Thursday rematch, Wilmington hosting Kennedy Catholic. It's going to be a big one for sure on the girls' side of things as we round out the District 10 girls basketball season. Well, let's take a look now at the bracketology for the boys' side of things. Again, we'll start with the classifications that do not have Lawrence County teams. That would be 5A, 4A, and 1A. We'll start with 5A, and this is a team I've been watching all year in Montour. I mean, Amaso is playing absolutely lights-out basketball. Great team basketball, though, all through that Montour squad. Really good 1 through 5. I have them as the number 1 seed, Baldwin as the 2 seed here, and Uniontown 3, Chartiers Valley 4. That's how I currently have them predicted to be for these for the bracketology for the brackets coming out now. Again on Monday at around 2 o'clock. Hiskey is a team that I'm really curious where they end up going in Class 5A because they're playing really well right now. I could see them as high as a 5 or a 6. I'm going to kind of hold the phone on that, though, because they have had a couple of not great non-section games. Not that they're bad losses, but they don't have a quality non-section win. So that's the only one that really concerns me for the Cavaliers and where they might end up. I can see them as high as a 5 or as low as a 9, in all honesty, there in the opening brackets. Class 4A, man, that was a tough one to try to seed. I don't envy the committee on 4A nor on 2A when we talk about that later, but 4A is rough too because the top 4 teams all get a bye. I have Bell Vernon as the 1 right now. North Catholic, I still kept Avonworth as a 2, even though they lost the section title there at the end of the year with a loss to Beaver. I still have Avonworth as the full body of work, being as the number 2 seed. North Catholic as the 3, Beaver as the 4. North Catholic, again, coming on strong at the end. They defeated both Knock and Deer Lakes in the last week of the year to get that. And I'll tell you what, that's a Knock team that's really good, a Deer Lakes team that is very quality, again, this year. And Elizabeth Forward's not a team to sleep on either. This is a pretty interesting bracket, how this is going to work with. But Bell Vernon, I think it's an 11, 12-game winning streak now. Too tough not to put them as the number 1. And in Class 1A, not a whole lot to look at here. I have Neighborhood 1, Nazareth Prep 2, Sarah Catholic 3, and Aquinas Academy in the 4 spot. Only 8 teams making the playoffs this year in a very much reduced Class 1A playoffs. And a couple shout-outs I want to give. First off, Monessen, the only public school in the 1A playoffs this year. And how about Summit Academy, though? I mean, they're certainly not a traditional non-boundary school. Summit Academy making the playoffs, very impressive. I actually have them being either the 5 or the 6 seed, depending on how the matchups work out. Because it's basically going to be, top from one section against 4th from the other section, working their way down the brackets. So there's your quick glance at 5, 4, and 1A. Let's take a look at the rest of the bracketology. We'll start with Newcastle in Class 6A. Have them as the number 2 overall seed for the Canes. 11 teams are going to make the playoffs here in Class 6A. So the top, 5 will essentially get the bye. Upper St. Clair the 1, Newcastle the 2. I have Imani Christian as the 3, and then Central Catholic and Fox Chapel in that order as 4 and 5, the teams getting the byes. I think Upper St. Clair will take on the winner of Seneca Valley Norwin. Newcastle will take on 7-seed Butler or 10-seed Woodland Hills. Butler, a team that's playing really, really well. That's not a matchup I don't think Newcastle would be looking forward to either way, in all honesty, because they lost to Woodland Hills over the course of the year as well. And I have Imani Christian winning or taking the winner of Mount Lebanon or North Hills in the 6-11 game. Mount Lebanon really strong down the stretch. That's why they have been bumping up. Seneca Valley has dropped. I can see them being as low as maybe the 9 or the 10 even, to be honest, as they had a really rough stretch. I think lost their final 5 games of their regular season. But Imani Christian playing in a big win late in the year over Central Catholic. That's where you get that 3-4 difference. But big shout out Newcastle, I think, kind of helped secure that resume in that 2 seed for sure, with defeating Aliquippa over the weekend as well. We jump down to Class 3A on the boys' side, and we kind of discussed this a little bit on the girls' side. I see it big time in both 3A and 2A for the boys' side of things. In terms of how do you look at section championship versus a very good number 2 team in your section? The committee can always do the easy thing and give your section champs your 1, 2, 3 or your 1, 2, 3, 4 seeds, depending how many sections there are. But if they do their homework, I think they're going to see, especially here in Class 3A, I do think that you have runner-ups, in both 3A and 2A, that deserve to be either as a 2 or a 3 seed. Before a couple of other section champions. And I'm talking about Class 3A. I'm talking about the Mohawk Warriors because they have 5 losses on the year. Here's their losses. To Neshannock, who's going to be a top 3 seed probably in the Class 2A tournament. To Deer Lakes in double overtime. By the way, both those losses coming in early December. Their other losses are to South Range, who I think has 1 loss this year in the state of Ohio. A really good program out there in the state of Ohio. And then 2 losses to Aliquippa, including a loss at the end of the year. It looks rough just looking at the scoreboard. They lost by 17. That was a game that Aliquippa shot over 75% from the field. And they didn't get mercy ruled. Like, if you get a team shooting that percentage and you don't have a mercy rule, that's it's obviously not a win, but I think that's, again, something you got to look at and you have to keep in your mind because, Mohawk, the way that they have played and the quality of opponents that they have played and beaten this year as well, tells me that they right now are one of the top 3 teams in this classification. I have South Allegheny as the 2. They only have 3 losses of the year, and again, they're pretty quality losses. On the road at Newcastle, another top competition in Baldwin, and we just talked about the Knock Knights in Class 4A. So I think South Allegheny's program has definitely shown that they are deserving of the 2. I have Mohawk as the 3, and Bishop Canevin, even though they were undefeated in their section as a section champion, I have them as the 4 seed. They played, yes, some great competition as well, but they don't have many wins to show for it. The best win on their resume is Lincoln Park. Any other year, I'm all over that. But Lincoln Park, definitely not the team they have been as of late. You have losses to Neighborhood Academy, Upper St. Clair, Butler, Greensburg Central Catholic, North Allegheny. Again, all quality teams. Avonworth in there. Glad that they're playing them. You got to be winning at least 1 or 2 of them to make it worth it, and I think that's why Canevin, in my mind, drops to the 4, and the other section champion in Southmoreland as the 5. We'll see how the committee shakes it up. Again, that's the way I view it. But again, I'm one person. The committee is 12 people. They're going to look at it a lot in more depth and look at a lot of different potential angles out of it as well. Southmoreland team, I don't want to sleep on them though either, because Noah Fellenser is a great scorer as well at 23 points per contest. You got some great scorers in this classification for sure. I mean, you can't go without talking about Bobby Fadden at 22 points a game, Josh Pratt, 23 points a game for the Quips. You have some great pure scorers all around that makes any of these top 5 teams, not a team you want to be seeing, especially early on in the postseason. But for the full brackets, I have 1 Aliquippa against 16 Charleroi, 8 McGuffey taking on 9-seed Ligonier Valley, the 4-seed Bishop Canevin against 13 Carlinton, and 5-seed Southmoreland against 12-seed Shadyside in my predictions here. South Allegheny is the 2. I have them taking on 15-seed New Brighton. I have Keystone Oaks as the 7-seed taking on 10-seed Elwood City. Then there's 3-seed Mohawk with Seton LaSalle, and 6-seed South Park against Waynesburg. I think once you get past the top 8 or 9, you do have a drop-off in terms of the quality of teams that you have. Elwood City is a team, they're going to be either 9 or 10, just depending on how everything kind of shakes up in the brackets. They're a team that, again, has a good balance. They're putting up a lot of points. I think as a team, again, if you get a team like that shoots hot at the right time, it could be a very dangerous scenario. And I feel the same way about Keystone Oaks, that they've been shooting the ball very well over the last couple of games. Ligonier Valley puts up a lot of points. So those 3 teams, who I have ranked 7, 9, and 10 respectively, are all teams that are going to be ones to keep your eye out for as you end up going into your first round matchups. And again, no buys in Class 3A, which is also very nice. Class 2A, well, there's no first round buys, but there's a lot of pigtail games to get things started. And this one, again, is absolutely a pain to try to seed. The committee's going to have to spend the most time here on the Class 2A bracket, because 21 teams are in there. That means that those ranked 12 through 21 will have to play in those pigtail games. So it's not true opening round buys, but you do need to make sure that you have the teams numbered correctly, because the top 11 seeded teams should be the ones that have to play one fewer game to try to get their route into the postseason. So let's start with the top 4 first, because again, this is a scenario where I think you have a section runner-up that is a high-quality team and deserving to be one of the top teams in the rankings. I have Greensburg Central Catholic as the 1. I have their section mate Jeanette as the 3 seed, similar to what I have with Mohawk in Class 3A. Swickley Academy as the 2, and Neshannock as the 4. So you have section champions at 1, 2, and 4. Swickley Academy with 4 losses on the year total. Jeanette's only 2 losses coming to Greensburg Central Catholic. Again, I think you have to keep that sort of thing in mind of those 2 teams they could be the two best. I like giving that opportunity of if they end up proving they are the best, they will meet in the finals when you have a first and a second place team that are so head and shoulders, again, above the other teams in quality as we look at it. The issue is, okay, I can say similarly to Northgate. Now, they have 8 losses on the year, but again, against higher quality and higher class opponents like Central Catholic, Beaver, and North Allegheny. So looking at that, they also played Avonworth as well. Forgot about the Lopes. So I have Northgate as a 5. That's, again, a team that I don't want to be seeing anytime soon. The height that Northgate and Swickley Academy is going to be a matchup nightmare for everybody. I then have Shar Houston as the Section 3 champions as the 6th seed. I have Olsh as the 7, as it was the second place team out of Section 4. After that, man, does the seeding get very, very interesting. So after that, you have teams like Union as a number 3 seed out of their section, but they beat Jefferson Morgan, who finished tied for second in Section 3. So you kind of have to look at that one. West Green, Fort Cherry, Jefferson Morgan, they all split with each other. They actually played Fort Cherry and Jefferson Morgan played earlier in the year as a non-section game in a preliminary tournament. And Fort Cherry wins that, so that's how I kind of order Fort Cherry over the Rockets and over the Pioneers there. And then you have, again, all these games that or all these ties that ended up showing up with splits. So, for example, Springdale and Bentworth tied for 5th place in their section. Laurel and Southside tied for the 5th and final spot in their section. Clairton has had some rough games down the stretch. They finished with an 8-10 record, but they lost 4 of their last 5 games on the year. So how do you put them in there? Bentworth, a team that beat them late in the year. Shenango, a team that has had a couple of big wins late. They've been moving up in my rankings down the stretch. A Winchester Thurston team that is 4 losses coming to Swickley and Northgate on the season. But one of their losses is to Springdale. So, no matter what, you're going to have a controversy here because, so just to give an example, what I just said there, Winchester Thurston lost to Springdale, but I still have Winchester Thurston with the overall resume ahead of the Springdale Dynamos. So let's just get right into it. I have the final teams getting the preliminary round bye. Union as the 8 against Winchester Thurston, the 9. Olsh was the 7. I have them taking on 10 seed Clairton. That was a tough one of where to put the Bears. And then the 6 seed Shar Houston I have taking on 11 seed Shenango. And yeah, Shenango, 4th place out of their section. I know the record only says 11-10, but again, it's the quality of teams that they have beaten in the year. They played some tough games early, but they do have some big wins under their belt, which I think down the stretch especially speaks volumes, winning 4 of your last 5. And just, again, looking at the overall resume in some of these cross-sectional games puts the Cats up there in the rankings. So the preliminary round games, I have the 16 seed West Green taking on 17 seed Best Center. Winner of that one taking on GCC. The Union Winchester Thurston game is an 8-9 matchup. 13 Bentworth, 20 Brentwood. Those two teams, winner would take on Neshannock. And then Springdale and Eden Christian in the 12-21 game taking on the 5th seed Northgate. Jefferson Morgan hosting Laurel as the 15 versus 18 game. Winner of that one would take on Swickley Academy. Olsh Clairton is a first-round game, 7-10. I have Fort Cherry and Southside in the 14 versus 19 game. Winner taking on Jeanette. And then again, Shar Houston against Shenango in the 6-11 game. Hopefully you're watching on the Facebook page, Twitter page, or on YouTube to see all of that in action. Those of you listening on Spotify, I give you props for trying to follow along with your charts there at home. But again, there's just so much going on in this bracket that made it very fun to try to piece it all together, but also just made it an absolute headache to say the least. So it will be very interesting to see how they try to again, to shape that all out down the stretch. But Neshannock getting a section title outright, again, thanks to a Shenango defeat of Our Lady of the Sacred Heart late in the year. Again, the Shannoks got only 2 losses on the year, one to Burrell, and the other one to Olsh on the road. Union as an 8, again, a 3 seed in your division getting the 8, it is one that's going to be an interesting one to look at. And, again, compared to Winchester Thurston, basically the same record, 15-6, 16-6. The Union getting the 8 over Winchester Thurston and 9, again, is, I think, just of overall quality of work, and the fact that Union does have a couple of like opponents that they have wins with, especially that Jefferson Morgan win early in the year does end up playing pretty well into their favor of showing that Union, in theory, would be ranked above those runner-ups in section number 3. Again, how much does the committee weigh one thing over the other? We'll find out at about 2 o'clock tomorrow exactly how that plays out. So again, stay tuned on social media. We'll have all those brackets released. As soon as they are released, we will send them out to you as well. Big thanks for Penn Ohio Bottled Water delivering these podcasts and sending out the bottles of water to you. Make sure you give them a call, and don't forget about their custom label option as well. Let Penn Ohio do the heavy lifting and deliver clean, refreshing water straight to your home or work. I'm James Dotson, glad to have been able to enjoy some of this bracketology with you. We will have, believe it'll be on our normal night of Wednesday night, we will have our preview show podcast breaking down most of these brackets. Again, for the WPIAL, we'll focus mainly on the brackets that have our teams involved in it, but we'll take a look at all the brackets as well. We'll get the full round table on for that one, bring in Tim Continenza, Eric Thomas, and Lee Moan to give their 2 cents as well. That'll be a fun one for sure coming up again. Believe on Wednesday night. We'll see when preliminary round games could potentially be played. The official first round of playoffs is supposed to start on Thursday. Again, don't know for sure if that means true first round or if that means some of these pigtail preliminary round games. So while we wait to get that confirmed, we're kind of in limbo. Stay tuned, and remember, please, 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 we try to get all these games on the air the best that we can. There's no guarantee of that ever happening. We need your help to get some of these games on the air, and especially if we're going to try to get any of the games involved as a broadcast free for you to watch. We do what we can, but we are handcuffed with the rights fees. A lot of the games are going to have to be video, if there's video at all, on the NFHS network behind their paywall. We can get some games for free, not a guarantee, but with your help, we can try to make these happen. Best of luck to all the teams out there. It's going to be a large tournament this year in class, or in all the classes in the WPIAL. Best of luck to all the teams, and thank you for tuning in, live or archived. And please, I know a lot of these are going to be way off. This is just one man's opinion. Just try, hey, what's March Madness without a little bracketology? Thanks for tuning in on Beyond the Scoreboard podcast.